Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves and enjoy a little chocolate. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. I am thrilled today to have Kia Williams with me. Let me tell you really quickly about Kia. She has her MBA, her MS, is a JEDI advocate, global fitness presenter, published author, program specialist, wellness service provider, and the 2022 IDEA Fitness Instructor of the Year, which if you guys are not familiar with that, that's a huge, incredible honor. Kia is the youngest person and first Black person awarded in this highly acclaimed recognition. Her heart dedications are for serving as the Wellness Chairman for the NAACP Fort Worth-Tarrant County Chapter, founding board member of Striking and Strong Hair Care Brand, Fit for Mom board member, and executive board member for Jeremiah 33-6, a not-for-profit holistic health education and preventative medicine corporation. Kia's career mission is to support people who are affected by marginalization in jobs, education, healthcare, and lack of representation in the fitness industry. And today we are talking all about her new book, Functional Core for Women, Targeted Training for Glutes and Abs. Kia, welcome to the Graced Health Podcast.
Hello, Amy. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You are so welcome, and it is truly an honor to have you here. I mean, I know I just mentioned that, but that you have so many things that you have done and so many accomplishments, and I am thrilled for you and so happy for you that that was recognized, the culmination of all of that was recognized in that IDEA Presenter of the Year. So
Thank you.
congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. You just made me tear up a little bit. Thank you.
It's hard work. You're doing some hard work and you're doing
It
some
most
great
certainly
things.
is.
And I'm glad that it's being recognized on a national level.
Thank you.
Um, Now we talked a little bit before we hit record, and we wanted to just really focus in on your new book.
Yes.
I recognize how hard it is to to publish a book. Man, there's a lot that goes into that. So congratulations on that. And I want to start this conversation by just sharing that whenever I'm a personal trainer. I've been a fitness professional for 18 years, something like that. Yeah, 18
Mhm.
years. I've been doing group fitness so long that I used to do like step aerobics and thong leotards. Like I am showing my age here, but that's okay because most of my community is with me. And when I onboard a new client or have any kind of survey, I will say, what are some of your goals?
Sure.
Almost without fail, they say, you can probably guess what it is. I want to strengthen my core.
Yes.
Yes. And clearly you recognize that this is a focus for women and how important it is. So I want to back up a little bit, and I would love to hear about your journey or path to becoming a fitness professional before we get into all the core stuff.
Absolutely. Sure thing. I would say, and you just made me have a flashback when you talked about thong leotards and working out. Um, I have to credit my mother. She would be very upset if I didn't. To my first introduction to organized or group fitness or structured fitness programming, we would do Denise Austin videos on Lifetime TV in our living room. We had all of Billy Blank's VHS tapes. I have
Typo.
Yes, I have a record from. I wish I would have brought it over because I'm gonna have that autograph for me. But a record player, we had a record player in which we would listen to the fitness instruction on the record player. Lord, how far we've come in the fitness industry and in technology. So I have to give homage to my mother for introducing me to fitness. But I would say more realistically, I was a child athlete. I ran competitively track and field, played competitive volleyball from like the age of 9 all through high school. And then I obtained a pretty gnarly ankle injury, a broken bone, split tear tendons, and had to go through physical therapy and what we didn't really talk about at the time was how something so traumatic for me to have so much athletic identity, that sports was my world. Moving my body to win games was all that I focused on for the most part. For that to have been interrupted and then taken away because with my recovery through physical therapy, I just wasn't able to get back on the courts the way that I was. How that messed with my psyche. We didn't talk a lot about mental health at that point in time as a community. So it was a lot of things that I was facing that I didn't understand and that I masked and I hid because I was a strong kid. I was a strong person, a strong athlete. And I was secretly crying in the bathroom because sure, I was in pain, but I couldn't understand. Is it physical pain? Is it mental pain? Is it in my heart? Is it in my spirit? What is this? What am I balancing? Who do I talk to about it? So from physical therapy, I was introduced to gyms like your Gold's Gym. Shout out to Gold's Gym, in which I was given a workout program from my physical therapist to continue on my journey of rehabilitating myself from the injury and being in the weight room, which felt familiar to me because I was in a strength and conditioning type setting playing competitive sports. I kind of knew what I was doing, but I was opening my eyes to something brand new, a whole new world. People that looked different from the athletes that I was used to being around on a daily basis. And then I took a peek into this glass or windowed room where there were mostly women exercising together. At the time, it was a step aerobic class. And I was like, oh, I remember that. I remember that. I did that with Sharon Mann on TV. I did that with Jalad on Fit TV. I know what that is. I could do that too. But there was still just a little bit of insecurity or trepidation going into it. But I snuck into it because they were playing really good music that, oh, I get down to music. Yeah, so I was hooked. I was like, so this is what other gyms look like, gyms separate from, the volleyball camps that I've been to. Like, I think this is home for me. So I kept taking classes as a teenager and getting to know the instructors who took me under their wing, and who had a lot of maternal instinct when it came to seeing a very young individual in their classes and spaces, but also the personal trainers who were like, this little person can squat. Like, what is this? So I just felt right at home, my new home, my new family. And from there, I started mentoring under some great people who taught me how to teach yoga and step aerobics. And then I learned about certifications. Then I went on to college and became a group fitness instructor. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting paid to do this. And just from there, more opportunities came. I would say it's almost kismet. It was written before I even knew it, that this was my life's journey.
Oh my goodness, that's so good. Um, I think you touched on so many of those things that I want to pull the thread, but I won't because I know we're here to talk about core strength. But that
Yeah.
I think it's so easy when you're young to get caught up in that identity as an
Yes.
athlete, and this is what I do. And so what I want to do is kind of marry that with
Mhm.
what you just shared about being exposed to something different, and then realizing that we can still move, we can still find that joy in that,
Mhm.
but it might be different than what we know or what we expected.
Precisely. Exactly.
I have to ask what events you ran in track.
I ran the 200, and for a little bit, I was on hurdles. Hurdles was quite intimidating.
Ooh,
Yeah.
hurdles. One of my kids runs track, and I could sit there all day and watch all of the events. They're
Yeah.
so fun to watch. They're so
Oh,
fun.
it sure is. And my nephews are in high school now, and they both run track. And oh, I just have to be at the meets. And I eat the stale nachos and everything because it just takes me back. Just takes me back.
Yeah. The stale nachos with the whatever the yellow stuff is that goes on top of
Oh
it. I
my
mean, can we
goodness.
even call it cheese?
Right. One of my friends, years ago, she brought some cheese and stuff, and I was joking with her. I was like, I don't want this food coloring and oil. What is this? And so that's our running joke in our friendship of, remember the cheese? Yeah, that's exactly what that cheese is. Just oil, food coloring, and whatever else. And every now and then they'll sprinkle on a few jalapenos.
Yeah.
You know that, right? Oh, I miss it. I miss it so much.
They are great. Oh, goodness. Okay, so let's kind of pivot a little bit and talk about your book. So, you have written this wonderful book that I have had the pleasure of reading and perusing. It has
Oh,
so
awesome.
much quality content in there. And it's called Functional Core for Women, Targeted Training for Glutes and Abs. So, let's back up a little bit. And I would love for you to describe core strength for us.
Absolutely. I feel like, Amy, you and I are going to be doing a lot of backing up because we just get off on a tangent. We're just really enjoying each other's company. But your question, how would I define core strength? First, the core is a collective of muscles that stabilize and control or support the pelvis, support and protect the pelvis and spine. So let's be clear about that. And therefore, these muscles collectively influence the arms and the legs, the upper body to move however neuromuscularly we tell it to. These are muscles that make up the torso mostly. But for this installment of the book, and I'm hoping that there will be more, we're going to focus on the glutes and the abs, all right, when we're talking core and core strength. I would define core strength as the strength of the underlying muscles of the torso, which help to determine our posture, stability of the body, and how we react, whether it's with our agility, response in space and time in everyday life, functional training, or even in sports, just to name a few.
Yes. And I love that you focused or that you brought out that agility, that functionality, the everyday aspect of it, because,
Mhm.
unfortunately, not to throw any entity or person under the bus, but so often we think of core and not we, but a lot of people think crunch, 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 crunch,
Yeah,
crunch,
yeah.
sit up, sit up, sit up, and maybe a plank.
That's true. And you say we like I do because we speak inclusive language. Yeah, we want to be a part of the community. So I get that. But that's very true. And that's why this book is so important, why it was important for me to write and put the words on page. Because as a professional group fitness instructor, to your point, almost every day that I'm teaching a class, at least one person will come up to me and say, can we do more core? And what they really are asking me is, can we do more abs? And then what they're really asking me is, can we do more crunches? I'm just like, oh, I just wish you knew what I learned from reading all of these marvelous manuscripts and books about what our true core is and how it works to support our daily living and longevity in life and make us even more um, or improve our athletic performance, make us stronger as athletes if that's our identity, if that's our jam. But yeah, we do hear that quite frequently about core being misunderstood as just our abs, and not just the abs, the six pack abs, the rectus abdominis. That's the core. Apparently, that's it. That's all that the people want. That's all they say.
Oh my gosh. If
Yeah.
you're watching this on YouTube, you've just seen me going bazonkers over here. But if you're listening in your ears, I just want you to imagine me like nodding my head and laughing silently because all of
Yeah.
what Kia said is so
So
spot
true.
on. I can't even tell
Yeah.
you. Oh
Amy
my
was
gosh.
giving me all the visual amens. We relate on this topic. Got it.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Okay, so some people do need, I mean, I have trained many a client
Mhm.
who truly do need to focus on core strength. And I can tell
Yeah.
just from the years, but and some people know that as well for whatever reason.
Mhm.
So I would love if you could give us some indicators on um, what what are some indicators on how that we need to strengthen our core, not our rectus abdominis, six pack
Yeah.
abs,
Right.
core.
So the entire core, the collective of muscles. I got you. Oftentimes, I've experienced in my counterparts, my peers, colleagues, and even individuals who I have the pleasure of supervising have experienced our clients coming to us after some kind of traumatic event or injury in which their doctors, physical therapists, or even chiropractors are telling us, go take group fitness classes or go get a personal trainer because you need to strengthen their core, your core. And they don't always know what that means. So we proudly, as fitness instructors and responsible service providers in the fitness industry. And I say we, meaning everyone listening or watching to this episode collectively. We get so excited, don't we? We get so excited to say, ooh, let me show you, let me teach you, let me share with you what I've learned, what I've done my due diligence to learn about the body, kinesiology, exercise science, because I want to better serve you. I want us all to be smarter movers, and again, have longevity in life. So some indicators that we are witnessing, that we have been witnessing around the need to strengthen core. A lot of people are having lower back pain and don't understand why that is. Some people have lack of stability or balance or even coordination, and that could correlate to a weakened core. Of course, I recognize and understand that there are external extremity or other outliers, but we're focusing specifically on what we wrote in this book. So lack of balance and lack of coordination or troubled coordination, and the inability to stand or even squat without support. Yeah, getting up from a chair and having to use a table to lift ourselves up. Walking upright may be challenged because a person has a weakened core or have opportunity to strengthen their existing core. We touch on individuals recognizing that having a stronger core can help us better carry our groceries with lifting a child or our children. If you have a pet, carrying your pet, walking up and down stairs, just to name a few. Yeah.
Okay. Those are so good. And
Yeah.
yeah, those are, I mean, those really are, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to identify a weak core in the gym doing
Mhm.
something that someone has told you to do. It might just be your natural functional movements throughout the day. So
Right.
those are great examples. Thank you for that. What about some of the myths surrounding core strength? And we
Ooh,
talked about the rectus abdominis, we talked about a six-pack abs,
yeah.
and if you want to expand on that anymore, you can, but talk to us some about some of those myths.
Um, One of the most common myths that we are facing in our industry is that the strongest cores have the most prevalent or obvious cuts. And we know that that's not true. In the dance world that I've dabbled in and throughout my childhood and adult life, um, people who appear based on American standards of what is a fit body, so prominent muscles and cuts and strength, don't always have the best turnouts as other dancers who don't appear or show up that way, or the best pirouettes, staying on point because they have lack of balance or something like that. Or even in those who identify as male, men who have eight packs and all the sexy cuts, people say, whatever the word sexy means, subjective at this point. So
Amen.
we challenge the myth behind core strength is all about aesthetic and appearance. We know that that is not true. We don't know the inner function. We can't see the inner function of the body to the naked eye. So we're up against that myth when it comes to core with the abs mostly, but then also with the glutes. Now that big butts are in style, I mean, Sir Mix-a-Lot may have been the first to make that a cool thing to talk about. Um, People think that just because you have a large derriere, that makes you that enables you to jump higher. I did experience that once, and that this thought just came to me just now in my early ages in college, because my quads and my glutes are quite large. I mean, genetics for the most part. But this person came up to me and said, "I bet you're the fastest track and field runner," and I was like, "Well, yes." And just kidding, just kidding. But I thought to myself, like, huh, I haven't run in many years, so I'm probably not the fastest. I never was the fastest person by Guinness World Records. But I just thought, huh, you just assumed that by my appearance, how I show up in space, not even contributing that to, just genetics or the fact that um, I've been eating quite a few carbs. So I've got to admit, and by my definition and only my definition, I've become a little fluffy in those areas. So thank you, my dear. Um, but just myths of assumptions that people have about uh, what the aesthetics and appearance is, that must mean you are athletic, that must mean that you have the strongest of core, you can hold a plank the longest time. I observed a plank competition, and even the judge, the self-entitled judge, said to these people who are like, yeah, I'll volunteer to hold a plank for as long as I can. He said to one person who appeared to be fit because of their muscular appearance, oh, I bet you're going to win this. This is unfair. You shouldn't be able to compete because you clearly work out. Well, that person didn't win that plank competition. I was like, gotcha, told you, you know. That's just one myth. Another myth, or no, that was two, about the rectus abdominis or six packs, eight packs, and glutes, the size of glutes, and what that could mean about your athletic performance. But I've also enjoyed spending time with bodybuilders, um, who, not all, I'm not generalizing, but some who I have been very interactive with have said, I am not as coordinated as a dancer. I am not as coordinated as a cheerleader. I'm not as coordinated as just people who like to move, who are rhythmic movers, who can move to the beat of music. But people think because I lift heavy weights, that must mean I'm able to throw a baseball far, kick a soccer ball, and score a goal every single time. Like, no, you're making assumptions based on whatever influences that tell you the way I show up equates to X, Y, and Z. So those are just a few myths, but if you read my book, there are quite a few others that we detail.
Yes, yes, you do. And I completely echo and agree with all of what you said. For sure. And I would add my own little story. I've been a group fitness instructor forever, and
Mhm.
or it feels like forever. And I used to run a lot. Like I did half marathons and triathlons and all of that kind of stuff. And I got injured. And I was known as the leg lady. Like
Right.
in group fitness, they knew that when they came to see me, we were doing squats and lunges and squats. And so I got injured, and the person who was kind of helping me with this did this assessment, and she could see that my knees were caving in when I
Mm,
was doing squats.
yep.
So, and you just responded to that. That means if that's happening, that means that your gluteus medius is weak. That means that some of those smaller glute muscles
Yep.
are weak because I wasn't holistically training all of
Right.
my glute muscles. I was just doing the big sexy ones. And
Yep.
so we could assume that those were that I was, that I had great glute strength when in fact I didn't, which is what caused the injury. So just as a little personal anecdote to that. So I
Yep.
now preach all about what I call
Imbalance.
the mini muscles.
Right. All the imbalances that we could be facing. Very good point. Thank you for adding that.
Absolutely. Yes. That was before I was a personal trainer. Just in full disclosure, I was
Mhm.
doing group fit, but I hadn't been fully educated in the next level. Okay, so let's talk about some applicable things. I know my community is
Ooh,
always loving it.
yeah.
Um, you know, if they're listening and thinking, okay, I need to do some more core work, or maybe I need to back off the crunch, crunch, crunch and do some things a little more holistically, can you offer us a few movements that you would recommend to someone who wants to do a little bit more?
Right. First, something you just said about the crunch, crunch, crunch. There's a lot of literature coming out now that's saying crunches are not good for us, not good for our spine and our back. And I encourage everyone to read and challenge anything that you read, anything that you consider credible or incredible or science-based or not. Challenge it with the smarts and the know-how that you have, and always fact check and look for other research to support or disprove it. But we do mention that in this book, Functional Core for Women, why this narrative, why this language is being used. And I challenge back that crunches aren't necessarily bad, because there are functional movements that we do in our daily life that is forward flexion, which is the crunch. But perhaps, just perhaps, the crunch has been done incorrectly, which has equated to injuries, made injuries happen within the bodies, especially in the neck and the spine. So maybe it's on us, responsible service providers, to correct the exercise, to better cue and coach it, as opposed to encouraging people to throw it out. But there may be some bodies that should not do it for many reasons, but that's up to us. And other medical service providers to say, maybe your body is no longer adapting to or welcoming this type of movement. But read up on it. I found some really interesting literature on why we are anti-crunch these days. But yeah, some
Well,
exercises, the question, go ahead.
oh, I just kind of wanted to close that with me. I agree. I think what I'm challenging is people's the mindset of I want to strengthen my core, so this is the only thing I'm going to do, and
Absolutely.
overuse too, overtraining any
Absolutely.
particular muscle group is going to be
Mhm.
problematic in the long term. So I agree. I did want to clarify that. I'm not saying they're
Oh,
terrible, but I'm just saying that what I'm excited about with this conversation is it's to raise
right
the
on.
awareness of
Yeah.
the breadth of things that we can do for our core.
Right on. No, I did not assume that for you, from you at all. Thank you for clarifying that for me and for our listeners. Just reflecting back on a lot of new literature that is hitting the market on why I wanted to touch on the crunches.
I'm
But
glad you did.
yes, can I offer one or two movements you
Please,
said that
please.
I recommend? My go-to, my personal favorite, squat. It recruits the muscles of the entire lower half, mainly the gluteus maximus, or the glute region, period, that we're talking about in this book, but also planks. A personal trainer of mine in the past said, and I keep this with me nearly every single day that I coach a plank, the most effective way to work the entire abdominal wall is a plank. And I really do agree with that. I mean, one, just get on the floor and try to hold a plank. Whatever a plank looks like to you, on your forearms, on your palms, both knees down, one knee down, both knees up. Challenge yourself. Hold a plank and really dial into. Now we use a word Dr. Stuart McGill gave to us in this industry called gauging, or bracing, rather, bracing of the entire abdominal wall. We brace before we move. So with reading this book and understanding even more what the word brace means and how you equate that to the practicality of functional movement, you start to really understand what is happening to your body, or even asking yourself, why am I doing this exercise? What am I looking to feel? What is working? What muscles are primarily active or stabilizing my body? What do I feel again? What is this burn? What is this heat that I'm creating in my body? And you start to get even more response and understanding. And you even perform those exercises better. So my two go-to for entire core training, the squat and the plank. Work it into every exercise day, and I think you'll enjoy yourself way more. You'll enjoy exercise way more.
And I appreciate that encouragement to start kind of asking a little bit deeper, right? Like, why are
Mhm.
we doing that? What are we looking to feel? What's going on? Because I think it's important for us to start making that mind body connection, and that's beyond
Mhm.
yoga. Yoga is wonderful, but it's
Absolutely.
anytime we're doing something, really kind of getting our mind clued into and attuned to our body and how we're feeling, and I think that will help us perform those movements correctly too.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Now let's talk specifically about glute training. We've
Yeah.
talked a little bit about it. My community is women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe a little bit beyond. Talk to us about how glute training can be helpful as we age.
Yeah. Glute training, developing or strengthening our glute region or the muscles of the hip can certainly help us, and this has been proven and supported through research, help us to avoid or even mitigate injury, help us to recover faster from injuries, especially those of the back, the hips, the knees, the ankles. This training our glutes help us to create proper body alignment and stability. It helps us to prolong our physical activities. So as we age, we're still able to swim and run and bike. Sometimes the way that we do those exercises or those activities may show up different as we age, but as we're talking about accessibility to exercise and activities, with having a stronger body, especially focusing on our glutes to the point of your question, can help us to continue to exist and participate in those sports. Strengthening our glutes gives us even more confidence. Confidence in, sure, our appearance, but how we stand, we perform, we step up, we go upstairs, we come downstairs. What we've been studying and recognizing in the aging body is sometimes we develop a fear of falling. Yeah. And then we start to hunch over because we want to get closer to the floor. Because if we fall, at least we're already close there. We can catch ourselves, pick ourselves up. But with having stronger core muscles, including the glutes, of course, gives us way more confidence in standing prouder, taller, and recognizing that these strengthened muscles help us with our stability. So one, if we trip, maybe we won't fall. Or if we do fall, oh, so what? I bounce back every single time. Yeah, I recover quicker. Stronger glutes also help us to minimize that swaying of the lower back. Did I mention lower back pain earlier? It helps us to lessen that lower back pain. But even humping over, rounding through our shoulders. We think that, oh, we just need to work on the muscles of our backs, our chest, our abs, because those are the surrounding regions. But your glutes also help support in how the spine is aligned.
Yes, that's so good and so true. I really like how you say it can just give us more confidence as we get going or as we just go throughout our day to not fall, to be able to catch ourselves rather than kind of that hunching over protective measure. It will allow us to keep our kinetic chain upright. So that way that will also help prevent other issues like what you're talking about with that lower back and everything else. So I think that's wonderful. So your book, Functional Core for Women, has do you happen to know off the top of your head, like how many exercise, like movements you describe, demo, tell us how to do? I mean, it's
Right.
like,
There's a lot.
there's a
We
lot.
covered
I
a
mean, I
lot
want
of
to say like
space.
50. I mean, there's a ton in there.
Yeah, at least 50. But because we provide so many variations and alternatives to each exercise, we say at least 49, but there are way more because the exercisers can do these differently. Um, I can perform a squat. A squat is a squat is a squat, but with variations by adding different tools or toy exercise toys, or doing it unilaterally, staggered. It just gives us way more options. So there are endless possibilities. I say in this book, so many different opportunities for exercise.
Absolutely. So if
Mhm.
you're listening to our conversation and thinking, well, how do I want to make sure I'm doing a squat right, or I want to make sure I'm doing a plank right, grab this book because Kia not only gives you guidance with that, but it also gives you other ways of moving because it can
Yeah,
get boring if you're just doing squats all the time.
correct.
Let's be honest.
Mhm.
So I love that you do that.
Yeah, we have lots of variation, and that's true. That's something that we touched on when we talk about exercise adherence or even motivation. Why people get bored with us in our exercise classes. We need variety. We need options. Change it up. Make the tempo change. Progressive overload. Yeah, we talk about all of that.
Yes, it's so good. Okay, so tell people where they can get Functional Core for Women, and
Mhm.
we will have a link in the show notes. But if they're listening and can't access that, please tell them how they can get that book.
Sure, you can go to humankinetics.com, humankinetics.com. That's the publishers of this book. You can just type in Kia Williams or even Functional Core for Women in the search engine, and the book will come right up. You can also find us on Amazon, amazon.com. Again, you can search Functional Core for Women, targeted training for glutes and abs, or even type in Kia Williams and I come up. So yeah, if you'd love, I would love your support, and I would love your feedback and review. We can keep the conversation going about this book, and I really do aspire for there to be more.
Absolutely. And I know before we got going, you had mentioned that you have a very special dedication. So would you be willing to read that dedication to us and explain a little bit about it?
I certainly will. Thank you for that invitation. The dedication to this book. This work is dedicated to anyone who allows themselves to be malleable and open to learning something different from someone different. Exercise is evolving on a daily basis. The human body, we're learning more and more about. We know that we are not one size fits all. We are learning more about adaptation, accessibility, learning, asking ourselves, challenging ourselves, can we do better? And the answer is always yes. So I really do dedicate this book to individuals who want to think outside of their own parameters, their own box, recognizing that we all have what some constructs call blinders, blinders of we only know what we know. Sometimes in industries, in life, it's hard to accept the advice of someone we don't know, who isn't who we see, or the type of person we see show up in spaces on a regular basis. Where I'm touching on diversity right now, and not just diversity of what you see on the outside, but as you dive deeper, um, to a person's experience. With this book title being Functional Core for Women, and yet for me to be a person who practices and advocates for inclusion, some people may challenge me and say, wait, that's an exclusive title. That's only for women. Listen, if you have a body, a human body of any way, shape, form, ability, or if you label it disability, there's something, at least one thing, I promise you, if you open your eyes and heart to receiving the message of this book, there is something for everyone. A lot of men, people who identify as men, have come to me and say, you know, I use this book and reference this book for my own exercise journey, but to apply to my clients. And the way that you communicate has allowed me a new opportunity of communicating with my women clients in a way that they better understand what I'm coaching, what I'm healing, and helping me to understand their experience with me as their coach, but also in exercise. But what we also know with choosing this title, the publishing company and me for choosing this title, is that we women have been subjected to a lot of criticism and critique when it comes to our bodies and in exercise. Me as a writer, as a service provider, oftentimes I feel myself being scrutinized even more so than my male counterparts when it comes to what I know, what I'm confident I know, what I've studied, what my degrees and certifications have given me credibility in my know. I was just reflecting on this morning when making a post on Instagram, how I nerd out in a way of always including my references on Instagram. Kia, no one does that on Instagram. Like, don't make it weird. Like, this is not a manuscript. This is not your book for a bibliography and citation. But because of my experience in my career, oftentimes I'm challenged way more with what I'm saying, sharing, or reflecting on than my male counterparts. So a lot of influence of this book is to give even more encouragement to women that you are welcome in the weight room. You are welcome into exercise physiology conversations. You are important. Your experiences are important to beefing up, a play on words, I guess, beefing up um, muscular development or hypertrophy. Your experience, your knowledge, your background is important to all aspects of what is exercise and what is functional movement. So yeah, I dedicate this book to anyone who will allow themselves to be open to learning from someone with a different point of view.
You've kind of left me speechless on that. Thank you for that. You are right. And I I just honor the work that you have done. And I know it is so hard as a woman and also as a woman of color in this industry. And I am hopeful that maybe we can have an expanded conversation about that here on the show another time. Um, but I really appreciate your invitation to us and to our community to learn from someone who maybe they haven't yet. And I think you are the perfect person for this role. And I just thank you for your work and your advocacy.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you all for having me.
Yes. Okay. I have two more questions for you.
Oh,
Number
awesome.
one, you mentioned Instagram. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on that wild world of Instagram. Lots of traffic there. I tell you, traffic jams. But you can find me at KiaWilliams.fitness. I'm the only one with that name right now on there. I think that's only allowed with Instagram. Kia, Kia Williams.fitness. I'm still holding on to my Facebook page, although the cool cats tell me that's so out. But I'm on Facebook again, Kia Williams Fitness. My website at thecoreofitall.com. Yes, it's a mouthful, but it has meaning. At thecoreofitall.com.
Perfect. And we will link to all of those in the show notes. And then, what is the one simple thing you would like my community to remember about our conversation today? It can be big, it can be small, but just one little nugget for them to take with them.
That you have permission. If you've been waiting for someone to give you permission, well, shame on you. But if you need it, I'll give it to you. You have permission to show up in spaces just as you are. You are good enough. There's nothing in marketing, advertisement, social media that says your body, your core must look a certain way to be acceptable. As long as you feel good in the movements that you do, you deem it well that you're able to get out of bed and move, then fine, accept that.
Amen. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a graced day.